Welcome, welcome to the morning's first presentation. My name is Grayson Lenik. I'm going to present the good, the bad, and the idiots, how hackers get caught. Hopefully this should be kind of fun. They called it the fundamentals track for a reason. So hopefully this will be some good stuff. I got some fun stories and a little bit of information about how the cybercrime underground is evolving. So hopefully this should be a little bit of fun. This is me. I'm a principal security consultant for Nuix. I run the digital forensics and IR practice. I have many, many years of experience in digital electronics and network administration and investigations. I have some technical certifications. I'm a member of several law enforcement crime task forces, electronic crime task forces, as well as a handful of the societies and membership-driven things for cybercrime investigators. I speak regularly at a lot of these conferences, and I do some instructing as well for law enforcement. So we're going to talk a little bit about what electronic crime is, talk a little bit about law enforcement and their role. We'll talk a little bit about the criminal underground and how criminals are getting caught, and sort of the end results, and some of the people that have gone away for this stuff in the last few years. So just in case anybody doesn't know what kind of electronic crime is really out there, we're going to go through it pretty quickly here. So I've broken it down into 4 main categories that I see pretty frequently. And there are others. There are other types of electronic crimes, like defacements and things like that. But this is the 4 big ones that I like to talk about. So the first one we have is the theft of personally identifiable information, right? And a lot of times these go hand in hand with some of the other types. But when your personal information, your social security number, and your driver's license number, your home address, and all those kinds of things, when those get lost, they turn into a couple of different kinds of crimes. Most notably is identity theft, where people will actually assume your identity and open accounts in your name and go spend what should be your money. Not to be confused with credit card theft, which we'll talk about here in depth in a minute. And then healthcare fraud. This is a big one in the United States. It's sort of up and coming, and I'm sure that you guys see some of it here as well. We've actually seen cases where personally identifiable information has been stolen, and people will set up fake doctor's offices and start making Medicare claims and Medicaid claims. And by the time the administration figures out that there's actually fraud going on, this fake doctor's office has long since closed down and moved away. Okay? And they're perpetrating just millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of fake claims and stealing money that way. So that's another way that PII is being used. And then, of course, the big one that everybody's familiar with, the news is full of, is credit card theft. Right? The most 2 recent ones are Kmart, okay, and Dairy Queen, which is a big fast food chain in the United States. Dairy Queen was 395 stores over the summer. This breach went on for about 6 months. My Dairy Queen in tiny little Helena, Montana is part of this breach. So my card was probably actually lost during this breach. Credit card theft is probably the most prevalent electronic crime. And we're going to talk about why here over the next few minutes. It's insanely prevalent. The underground is so well developed that it's kind of surprising to a lot of people. So we'll go through that here in a minute. And then, of course, e-commerce breaches, as well as the point of sale stuff. People are still storing massive databases full of personal information and credit card data, even after all these years and all the breaches and all of the time that's gone by, and all the security professionals up here on stage preaching at people about not storing data that's worth something. E-commerce is still huge, okay? Banking Trojans and ACH fraud. We started long time ago with Zeus bot, and then moved on to some of the newer variants like Cridex and Cradex. Some of these things are so good at infiltrating your machine. They steal your keystrokes, your certificates. They can allow an attacker to sort of proxy through your machine and transfer money around. Okay, I've seen lots and lots of businesses and several government entities that I've actually worked cases where they've had $500,000 or $1.5 million transferred over a weekend to multiple different bank accounts overseas because somebody literally clicked on a pop-up box and got their the accountant's machine infected, where the ACH transfers come from. Okay, so this is bad news. And of course, ransomware. Right, we just had BitLocker and CryptoLocker, right, which Microsoft got a hold of the whole CryptoLocker network and managed to give everybody free keys to get their data back, which is good stuff not too long ago. But I thought we'd touch on that a little bit because ransomware is becoming more and more popular. There's already a replacement out there for CryptoLocker that we're seeing, and it's very, very effective. The best way to get around this is to just go ahead and pay the ransom, which is unfortunate because in turn, you're funding them, but nobody else is getting their data back unless you've got good backups. So restore your backups. Keep good backups. Okay? A little bit about law enforcement. So in the U.S., we have the Secret Service Electronic Crime Task Forces. The task forces are regional and generally tied to large metropolitan areas like Seattle, LA, Denver, New York City, Newark, Philadelphia, places like that. But they do have centralized command. The Secret Service has jurisdiction over financial crimes in the United States. And they sort of split their jurisdiction with a lot of electronic crimes with the FBI. The FBI's jurisdiction lays more in cases of intellectual property theft, espionage, state-sponsored attacks, stuff that you're seeing from China, and crimes against children. Secret Service generally sticks to credit card fraud, banking fraud, things along those lines. So over the past few years, working heavily in the payment card industry, I've worked with the Secret Service a lot, and occasionally with the FBI. In Canada here, it's a little simpler. RCMP really appears to have most of the jurisdiction over all that stuff, with assistance and electronic crimes task forces that belong to the provincial and local police like TPD. My advice here is just to get involved. I guarantee you, if you start looking around, there are regional meetings for electronic crimes task forces. If you have knowledge that you can share, if you have information about breaches, get involved. Help these guys out. If you have a breach, you have logs that point to a specific IP, at least let them know. The information that you have may tie to a larger case, may be useful to them. You have no idea. If you get that information to them, they can make the call and figure out what it is. People need to do a better job of reporting incidents. When things get reported, good things happen on the other end. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward too. And then maintain your evidence. If you've got incidents, hang on to some of that stuff. I mean, USB drives cost $30. Throw it in a safe. Throw it in a locker. Keep it on a shelf for a couple of years, and see if you can help those guys out. Hey, the underground. We're going to spend a few minutes here talking about the criminal underground, and more specifically, we're going to talk about the carding underground because it's insanely well developed. It's big business. It's organized crime. There are websites and whole currencies built around this thing. It's really kind of fun to sit and watch develop. So we'll start with the carding forums, and this is a really, really simple Google search, right? I just searched for carding forums just to show you what's available on the public open internet, right? There are 6 pages of publicly available carding forums. And almost every single one of them carries a .ru extension at the end. There are some others, but you see .ru, .ws, .se. All of these things are hosted overseas, or they think they're hosted overseas, at least. So we've seen a few of these that, you got companies like Rackspace that have resellers. And so they'll sell a block of servers to a reseller. And that reseller will then sell a block of those to another sub-reseller. Well, some of those sub-resellers will be in Russia, and they will offer you Russian servers, .ru stuff, that's actually hosted in Texas. So that gets fun when you actually start tracking some of those down and finding out that these .ru domains and .ws domains are actually hosted in Grapevine, Texas. Those don't tend to stick around too long. So this is just what's publicly available, right? You start talking about the underweb and some of the dark web stuff that's not publicly searchable and available, and this goes up into the thousands in the number of carding forums. So what's on a carding forum? Does anybody know? Anybody ever visited a carding forum? Yeah, Chris has, Josh has, of course. So what's out there on a carding forum? Here's one. This is probably the most well-known. Not a lot of actual real business gets done on the Carding Mafia website anymore because I think probably 70% of the users are probably law enforcement at this point. So they don't really use this one anymore. But it's still a great visual and still a great place to see what's on a general carding forum. Okay. So this is their front page, right? And they talk about everything they have. PayPal accounts, fulls, dumps, gift cards, bank logins. They'll sell you all of these things, okay? In some cases, they give them away every day still. I was just on there on October 15th for some of these screenshots. They'll post 5 or 10 full track data samples for people to just grab and use to practice carding and stuff. Okay, so they post stuff out there for free. What I think is kind of fun about Carding Mafia and some of these other carding forums is they're there to teach you how to be a criminal. And I mean, this is part of their private forum. Once you sign in, get an account, and sign up, you can take a carding lecture so that you can find out premium lectures self-made by top carders of the world, not posted anywhere. Because, you know, this is literally, you need an email address to sign up for this. Okay, that's all you have to have. Okay, they can tell you how to do bank transfers worldwide without any problems. They have full videos. They have full lectures. They have PowerPoint presentations on how to be a carder. Okay, so even if you don't know and you just want to get into the business, here you go. Go join a public carding forum and they will teach you how to be a cyber criminal. Hooray. Okay. Another piece, this is one of the ads from one of the admins, right? Hello guys, again, CP comes with a great idea for those who want to learn carding. Bank transfers, hacking full, shipping items, hacking into shop admin. You pay this guy for his lectures, and then he will teach you how to be a carder. And then when it really comes down to the hardware, so here's the how-to. Does anybody know where on earth you could possibly find something like a press to make credit cards, a card embosser? eBay. Yeah, they even sell them as a package with the hot foiler so that you can make a very convincing looking credit card, okay? It's about $800 for the full package right now for a card embosser and a hot foiler. A card writer, Josh, you just bought a card writer. How much was a card writer? $80, okay. Josh is a malware analyst, but needed a card writer to be able to work on some of the demos and stuff. So $80. So right now we're into it about $880, and a lecture here probably about $200. So call it $1,000, and congratulations, you're on your way to being a carder. It's just that hard. Okay. So, and then the infrastructure surrounding carders. I was saying earlier, just a few minutes ago, that this is an organized criminal enterprise. And when I say it's an organized criminal enterprise, there are truly kingpins out there that run the dump sites. And they're not actually doing any of the hacking, but they have hordes of people that are selling them cards that are being stolen from websites and merchants and everything else, anywhere else that you would obtain credit card data, whether it's from breaking into cars or breaking into websites. These guys will buy those dumps and turn around and resell them. So they build these websites. You go out there, you can search. So if you have plastic for TD Bank of Canada and you want to buy specifically card numbers that belong to TD Bank, you can do it on the carding forums. Okay? They've them listed out by bins and by locations and by countries and by card type. Platinums, black cards, gold cards, sapphires, whatever you want, they're all available to you. Okay? As far as the infrastructure goes, you start with the malware authors and the dump site owners that work together very, very closely. We see very, very large attacks being pulled off by some of the people that own the larger websites because they need massive amounts of card data to keep their sites running. So they work very closely with the malware authors. And we see a lot of custom malware being used for specific breaches, stuff that's been tailored to people like Target and Home Depot and Dairy Queen and Kmart, okay? And it's actually, Josh is going to talk about that stuff a little bit later today and the evolution of point-of-sale malware. So I highly recommend you go and catch his talk if you've got time this afternoon. And then we step down into more of the middlemen that are part of the industry. The middlemen are some of the hackers and carders that are the feet on the ground, right? Some of these guys take leadership roles. We see some of the hackers that have teams of 3 and 4 other hackers working for them, and they start breaking into machines, pulling off large-scale attacks, going after specific entities, and then the carders themselves, which are creating duplicate accounts. And then below them, they have an army of people that are just money mules and fraudsters. These are the guys that they're handing them a fake ID and they're handing them a stack of cards and they're saying, go buy high-value goods. High-dollar goods that we can turn around, put on Craigslist, eBay, whatever, and turn them into quick cash, okay? And these are the people that are generally getting caught because they're the ones that really carry the risk, right? In a lot of cases, these people are common criminals and thugs, drug users, and people that just need money, okay? So we'll break down a little bit of this. The leadership cast, the dump site owners and the malware authors, the people that can organize larger groups of hackers and cachers. They work very closely with malware authors, and I've given a couple of examples here. Badbe was probably the first really, really big site owner that was busted. And this was several years ago now. He's still in jail here in the States. A guy named Maxik, who is not in jail in the States. And more recently, does anybody know the name SolezNeff? Does that sound familiar? So SolezNeff is the son of a Russian prime minister, or a Russian minister that's part of their government. It's like a senator's kid. We'll talk about him here in a minute, okay? It brings up the question of whether or not carding and financial attacks are state-sponsored. And I almost hate to bring Mandiant and the APT and all that stuff into this, but they've done a pretty good job of calling out what you would consider a state-sponsored attack, where we have governments and militaries that are organized and they're going after our secrets, they're going after our communications, they're going after SCADA and controls. That's a state-sponsored attack, right? This is a state unit or a military unit that was specifically designed to pull off those kind of attacks. And I don't think we're quite there yet with the carders. But I do think that this stuff is state condoned. So there aren't necessarily military units or anything like that or commercial units that are designed to go after our financial infrastructure. But I think that's just because there's so much money to be made. The attacks are certainly state condoned. And that's why you see all these forums in Russia and places like that, because there are either no cybercrime laws or they're not willing to enforce them against their own people. That's why we have to wait for these guys to leave the country before any of them get arrested. Or sometimes they're working from here or from Canada or from the United States. So I think it's kind of scary because I don't think that there's a Putin at the top here as a mystery man, but there could be. And when that change happens, I really think that they could probably take down North America's financial industry in a matter of days or weeks. So it's kind of scary to think about them switching tactics. So I almost don't want to see us pull the billions of dollars out of this. It's almost worth it to let them keep stealing money just so that they don't destroy infrastructure. Now, something to think about. Here's SolezNeff. Roman Valerovich SolezNeff. He goes by Track 2 online. He's a Russian citizen. His father is a member of the Duma, which is the Russian parliament. He was arrested recently, about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, in the Maldives. And immediately, the Russian press got a hold of this and said he was kidnapped. And they're still sticking to it. They're saying he was kidnapped by the CIA. That's not true. He was arrested by the Secret Service in the Maldives and transferred to Guam, actually, where he's still sitting. He ran Carter.su, which is probably the largest of the dump sites that's running right now. Okay? That was this guy. And, of course, the Russians published this photo of him as the great family man, right? This guy's worth about $17 million, American. And it's all from stealing credit cards from you and me. So not a good guy and not kidnapped, just so you know. Okay, Badbe. This is the screenshot there. I don't have a real picture of him because they never really circulated a lot of them. He ran videos in 2008 and 2009 recruiting people to his Carter's army. And if you haven't ever seen the Badbe recruiting video, you should go out and find it and watch it. It's actually hilarious. But, I mean, this guy got pretty froggy, right? He's creating videos for recruiting people to be Carters and part of his Carter's army. So obviously law enforcement's going to latch onto him, right? He was arrested on vacation and extradited to the U.S., where he's still sitting in jail. He's a Ukrainian citizen. He got 88 months, and he's in the middle of that right now. His name is Vladislav Horohorin. Goes by Badbe. His Italian counterpart in the carding game was also arrested a couple years later. So, Maxim Yastremski went by Maxik. Not a very good handle, if you ask me. He was a major player in the TJX breach. He was actually running the carding forum that split out all of the TJ Maxx cards, as well as a major player in the Heartland breach a few years back. He is also a Ukrainian citizen. He made the mistake of hacking about 14 Turkish banks and then got arrested in Turkey. He is literally doing 30 years in a Turkish prison. Okay, not a joke, not a line from a movie. He is doing 30 years in a Turkish prison in Istanbul. Okay? Albert Gonzalez, he's doing 20 years. He was the actual hacker behind the TJX and Heartland breaches. This guy's actually a U.S. citizen. He's doing 20 years, and he's probably not going to get out anytime soon. And when he does, he'll probably never be allowed to have a smartphone, let alone a computer. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, you see some of these that are, a couple of years, a few months, and then some of these guys get 20, 30 years. I think it depends on how much actual loss they can tag on some of these guys. And some of them, they know that they're into this stuff waist deep, but they can only get them on 5 or 6 retail pops and maybe 150,000 in fraud. So they can't give you 30 years for 150,000 in fraud. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like the racketeering charge, right? They got them on something, got them off the streets. Yeah. So then on to the middlemen. The guys that I just showed you were more the leadership cast. These guys were the ones that were actually deeply involved or heavily involved, just a 2 or 3 man ring where they're doing a lot of damage. You get into the middlemen, these are kind of local groups and local gangs that organize hackers and cachers, and they're frequently moderators on the forums. They will do a little bit of everything, but they're not in the leadership cast. They're not making millions. They're making hundreds of thousands instead. They employ teams that'll go out and hack merchants, and they keep the carding forums loaded up with fresh dumps. Okay, so they'll organize teams of guys. They'll go out there, they'll hack a few restaurants. Maybe they'll turn around and sell the card numbers to one of the forums, and then turn around and buy other dumps back from the forums. And they do that just to kind of cover up their tracks, right? You don't want to go hack a restaurant in Texas and then go use those cards the next day. There's too close of a trail. So they'll sell them back, and then they'll buy others, and then they'll continue on with carding. And I've got a couple examples of these guys as well. One of them is named Gorilla Black, who's a rapper, and the other one is a kid named hrewton. So here's hrewton, David Benjamin hrewton. He's a Dutch citizen. He went by the name Fortezza. He was arrested in Romania with 1.1 million cards on his person. Okay, he's handcuffed in this picture. This is from a Romanian newspaper, but this isn't the picture of him that I like. This is the one that I like. This is about 6 minutes after he was arrested in Romania by the Secret Service in the interrogation room. They told him that they were going to send him to Turkey and that he was going to go to prison in Istanbul. He actually wet himself. It's hard to see in the picture, but yeah, this is one that you won't see in the newspapers. Okay, so that's hrewton. He was a mid-level hacker. He had a couple of people working for him, stole a lot of cards, and worked directly with Charles Tony Williamson, otherwise known as Gorilla Black. That's his rap name. He also had the nickname Black Dollar on the carding forums. So he was an amateur rapper. He had a fairly successful rap album, and then was actually kind of thrown out of the rap community. It's kind of fun if you want to go look up his story. It's on the BET website. They started calling him out as as a fake, and he was stealing rhymes from other rappers, and so they kind of bounced him out of the hip hop community. So he turned to carding. The one that they got him on was actually purchasing 27,000 cards from Fortezza in bulk, and then dishing them off to his local carder. Okay, he was arrested in July of 2012. That one right there, that's the picture from the cover of his rap album. That is a surveillance photo of him making purchases with stolen cards. That's him right there in the Gucci store. So there's a surveillance photo. Again, you won't find that in the newspaper. Okay, and then the common criminals. And again, these are just your typical criminals, right? These are the same guys that you would expect to catch busting into cars and pulling off all kinds of other crimes, right? And these guys are money mules and just your typical fraudsters, right? People looking to make a quick buck. And when you hear about the ATM cash outs, there are entire groups of these people that are being organized online via social media and the forums. And what they'll do is they'll put these guys together and they'll send out teams of 3 and 4 and 5 people to canvass a metropolitan area with, and they'll give them debit cards, stacks of debit cards with pins, and they'll send them out to start cashing out when they've broken into some kind of a bank and they take control of some of the banking infrastructure. And literally pulled off some of these ATM cash outs that inside of a span of 24 hours, they'll hit every ATM in a metropolitan area, or they'll hit large groups across the entire world. Everywhere from Africa to Amsterdam, and from the US and Canada in Japan. They have these massive global cash out operations where they will pull millions and millions of dollars of international currencies. And all of the teams get their cut, and then they send some of the money on to the boss who takes his cut on up the chain. It's like an episode of The Sopranos. So, but that's unusual. It's rare to see that kind of organization. Most of the time, these guys are local and fairly sloppy. A lot of times, they're not as sloppy. It takes them a little while to get caught. But there's a lot of money in this. Now, I've got one example here. So this is Christopher Schrabel. He was 21 in 2011. The picture here, he's just a kid, right? He's a U.S. citizen, heavy heroin user. When he was arrested, he had been shooting heroin into his thumb for so long that his thumb was rotting off. And they had to take him in, put him through rehab, amputate his thumb, and now he's in jail after they took care of him. But he was the main hacker and a casher as well for Guerilla Black and Fortezza's crew. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Okay, and then there's this picture from the FBI. This is a wanted poster that's posted on the FBI site. These people are the most wanted money mules on the FBI's most wanted list. I don't know who any of them are, but they look like your typical, right? Typical crew of misfits. So they're out there. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens of these people out there. Schrabel's a fun story. So why are these mules out there? Why are they doing this stuff? What's in it for them? Well, here's a picture from one bust. This was actually from a guy in Seattle that was picked up. He was running a crew of 3 or 4 mules. You can see he's got a handful of doper throw phones. He's got a stack of hotel cards. Right, what are those for? What do they have on them? A magnetic stripe, right? Just like everything else. These guys were hitting ATMs. They were buying cards with PIN numbers and hitting ATMs. So they picked this guy up, also in his car, about $80,000 in cash in a duffel bag, and a card writer right there in the middle. What could possibly be going on here? This isn't suspicious, is it? All right, so there's a lot of money in this. Even if you're just getting a percentage, there's a lot of money to be made in carding. So that's why these guys are in it. They're doing it. So how do they get caught? Anybody have any ideas? What kind of stupid stuff do they do to get caught? What do you got? Yeah, be a known criminal with, the cops know you and get in there and be part of an ATM cash out scheme. So the ATM takes a picture of you and they go, oh yeah, that's Willie. Yeah, that's one way. That's pretty good. Laziness, bad luck, misplaced trust, and just plain old dumb stuff. That's the 4 big ones, okay? The laziness part is more kind of just apathy, I think, right? They think, I'm a small fish. They won't go after me, or I won't get caught, right? So they hack from home, like Schrabel did. They don't use simple anonymizers like Tor or a VPN connection. I mean, come on, guys. Viper is like, what, $8 a month? And you can look like you're coming from Hong Kong anytime you want. I mean, come on. It's easy stuff. There's other anonymizers. There's other ways to do this stuff. Continual use of the same jump server. That's another big one. So they'll hack a server somewhere, anywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. Rackspace or Malaysia. It doesn't matter. But they'll continue to use the same jump server over and over. And they'll think, ha, 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 the server's mine. It doesn't matter where I connect to it from. Well, wrong. It does matter. And then hard-coded IPs and things like DNS and malware. Okay, that's kind of a big deal. This is a sample from an older piece of malware. This is from years ago called Cameo. But inside of Cameo, if you just looked at it with Notepad or WordPad or strings, you see this URL, 188.120.225.66. This isn't a great example because this server that it was dumping information to was actually in Romania. We're not going to get a hold of that. They're not going to let us. But when they start changing malware to have this dump site somewhere like Seattle or DC, you can bet that we're going to go and get a hold of that jump server, right? That's going to get turned over to law enforcement, and they're going to wind up with that server in their hands. You start looking at logs, you put a pen trace in place, and all of a sudden you see people logging in that really shouldn't be logging in. There's no reason for them to be on a server that's doing nothing but hosting dumps for credit cards, right? So that's pretty lazy. Bad luck. We've seen cases where part of a crew might just get pulled over, right, and have a bag full of cash and a card writer in the trunk, right? Just good old-fashioned police work. Get pulled over for a traffic stop, and a deputy sees counterfeiting equipment, brings people in, right? Have a fight with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and then go out and card for the night. And your significant other makes a phone call, and the police are waiting for you when you get home. It's kind of bad luck. Okay, misplaced trust. This is one of my favorites. So these guys are common criminals in most cases. There's not a lot of honor there, right? So they get caught, and they say, no, you don't want me. I'm a low-level guy. You want the guy that I'm buying my cards from. And then they arrest that guy, and that guy says, no, you don't want me. You want my friend that's actually running this carding for him, right? This happens all the time, right? And then another one is law enforcement can masquerade as business partners, girlfriends, clients, anything you want, all right? Place your trust in people that you meet online from a dating service, or maybe law enforcement knows who you are, knows your vices. There's a case going right now out there where the guy that was running one of the forums, big into porn, thinks he wants to be a porn star when he's done carding. So he started hooking up with people online that want to do amateur porn. Well, turns out that one of these amateur porn stars just happened to be a police officer. He came over to meet him, wound up getting arrested. So, I mean, these guys are human. They have vices, and they do stuff like place their trust in other criminals or place their trust in someone who's online and pretending to be someone they're not. And then some of their online associates can obviously be collaborators or even media, right? I mean, it's pretty well known that Krebs is out there on some of the forums and watching some of this stuff and buying cards so that he can try to identify where this stuff's coming from before anybody else, right? That's how he gets his scoops, some of them anyways. So if you look at some of the forums, people are constantly out there posting, and they'll send each other warnings like, hey, watch out, don't talk about that kind of stuff on here. We know there's law enforcement on the boards. So it's pretty well known. All right, and then just plain dumb. All right, so I got lots of examples of dumb. One of my favorites is there was a group out there for a while, they're all in jail now, But they were out there for a while, and they would install keyloggers. And that was just how they did it. They would pop point-of-sale terminals, and they would install keyloggers, so they're getting magnetic stripe data. Pretty simple. They were exfiltrating data. They got hit a couple of ways. Okay, so for one thing, the configuration file for the keylogger pointed at a jump server that was located in the United States. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two was that I think this guy was drunk half the time he was hacking, because he was always forgetting stuff. So he would install a keylogger and get it running, and then he'd FTP back out to one of his malware repositories and pick up more stuff. So he would keylog himself and give me his username, his IP address, and everything else about where he was hiding all his malware. So we got some nice samples off of those sites. Those were good. I've actually seen that happen more than once, 2-3 times. So obviously that information winds up in the hands of law enforcement. And then social media. All right, who's not on Facebook, Twitter, right? Everybody. The problem is these guys get this feeling like their IDs are bulletproof, right? They don't think that anyone knows who they really are. So they'll have their carding life, as Track 2 and Badbe, but they're still themselves, and they're out there on Facebook, and they'll talk about their travels, and they'll tweet and send pictures about where they are and where they're going and who their girlfriends are and who their family members are. And they really get kind of dumb about it, right? They'll say, oh, I can't wait to see my new girlfriend in the Maldives next week. It's going to be a great vacation. Can't wait. Got tickets, all that stuff. Well, insert extradition country here, right? When you say, hey, I'm going to Hawaii for the week, well, guess who's going to be waiting there for you? And then what I call restless millionaire syndrome. Right? These guys make a fortune in really crappy rundown countries. So they make millions and millions of dollars, and they're stuck somewhere gray and dull and boring. So they want to go out and see the world. And again, if their real identities are known, they start getting restless and they want to go on vacation or go buy a yacht or go travel somewhere and take the family. Somebody's waiting for them. Okay? And then again, online dating. Man, this is a big one. I keep hearing about these same stories where they keep getting these guys over and over and over again with some of this stuff. So we've actually got some friends, and I won't say where they are or which agency, but we've got some friends in law enforcement that did exactly this. So very, very attractive female agent, blonde, very fit, very attractive girl. Befriends one of the Carters on a dating site that they figured out he belonged to. And started sending pictures in summer dresses and bikinis and acted the part. And, they decided they were in love. Took her several months to really get the hooks in. She convinced one of the Carters to come to Vegas to marry her. And when he showed up in Vegas at the airport, she walked over, she gave him a great big hug, and went, click, click, you're under arrest. And then they proceeded to take him out to all the sites in Vegas and take pictures at the roller coaster and in front of the Paris. And they invited all of his carding friends to come to Vegas for the wedding. And they did. That's the kicker. They got 4 of these guys to come to Las Vegas. They said, we'll buy you tickets. We're in love. We're getting married next weekend. Come to Vegas and come to our wedding. And they did it. So they got 5 people on one of these. All right. So I mean, they're human, right? A lot of times they're young. Now they've got money. Right, it seems like a script from a crappy TV show, but I mean, this is how it happens, right? These people are all human. They're not bulletproof. They're not that elite. They just have some skills, and so they get caught by being people. All right, so now we got another guy here. So you're a mid-level guy. You're hacking businesses. You've got a couple of people working for you that are cashing out cards. You live in the 20th floor of a high-rise. One evening, you get a knock on the door from a battering ram. Pretty alert, jump up, run over to the window, and throw your laptop out the window to destroy it, right? 20th floor, you'd think that'd be pretty effective, right? Till it lands in the grass. They literally walked over and opened it up, and the screen's broken. It booted. So thank you, Apple, for making an indestructible laptop. That's just plain dumb, right? But that's good stuff. And then, of course, I'm a little early here, so I apologize. There's an end result to all of this. And the end result is jail sentences, right? And this is where it starts to get really good. So SolezNeff, right? SolezNeff is the guy that's the son of the Russian prime minister, or senator member, whatever. He's pending trial on 40 different counts of computer fraud and all kinds of different stuff, disrupting financial services, things like that. I'm guessing that he's going to go away for a long time. I think they've got him dead in the rights, and I think they waited 3 or 4 years. They sat on this guy for 3 or 4 years because they knew who he was before they arrested him, kidnapped him in the Maldives. Badbe, multiple sentences. He's in jail in the D.C. area. He's got to be a couple months or a couple of years into that 88-month sentence. So he'll be back on the streets probably within another 5 or 6 years. Not too bad, right? Maxik, we're never going to see him again. 30 years in Turkish prison. I doubt he'll make it. Honestly, I doubt he'll make it out of there alive. Maybe they'll, I don't know. I don't know how things really go in Turkey, but I understand it's not a pleasant place to go to prison. But he's gone. He's gone. Guerilla Black got 9 years. In his case, actually, he was just sentenced last October. Actually, right after SecTor last year, he was sentenced. And he got 9 years for his role as a low-level kingpin in the Seattle area. So he's gone. hrewton, the guy with 1.1 million cards that peed himself in Romania, 12 years. 12 years in the U.S. And Schrebel, his junkie partner, got 7 years. The reason he got half as much time is because he rolled. Once he got out of rehab, he gave them everything, all his passwords, all his encryption keys, and from what I understand, they actually used his IDs to lure hrewton into traveling. So that stuff happens. That's how that stuff works. Okay, some final thoughts here. Electronic crimes, not really yet considered state-sponsored, but it's almost definitely state-condoned. So I think we all need to be very, very careful and watch where this goes very carefully. Because if it does become state-sponsored, we're going to go from, oh, look at all the money they're stealing, to, oh, crap, we have no financial infrastructure. They're going to be able to shut it down as a precursor to some other kind of attack. So I think it's very dangerous. And it's funny to watch what criminals do and how they get caught and some of the dumb things. But we need to be very, very careful and very vigilant about this. Because if they decide to change tactics, it's going to get very, very ugly for all of us. Okay? If you're a system administrator or an InfoSec person, protect what you have. And more importantly, prepare yourself and your teams for quick response. Ryan yesterday put it very, very eloquently and said that the perimeter security is kind of a thing of the past. It's a dying art. They're going to breach your perimeter. What are you going to be able to do once they do breach your perimeter is becoming more important. So train like you fight, fight like you train. If you're not having real-world goal-based penetration tests, instead of saying, okay, I want you to attack my 2 servers between 9 and 5 on Thursday, that is not a penetration test. Having somebody come in and attack you like a real attacker would is a penetration test. And even more importantly than that maybe is, can you identify when they do? Can you tell when somebody breaches your perimeter? Do you know what it looks like? That's what I mean by train like you fight and fight like you train. And don't forget to engage law enforcement if you have the opportunity. If you've got source IPs from where an attack came from, let somebody know. Or engage a forensic investigator that does have those connections and make sure that you're getting the information to law enforcement. None of these people will go away unless everybody starts reporting. And when you've got good stuff to report, really, really good things happen. Okay? And chin up. Right? This is not an unwinnable fight. I've been doing this for about 10 years now, as far as the security consulting stuff, and I'm seeing people steadily get better and better. So we can win the fight. You just have to keep changing tactics the same way that they do. Okay? Any questions? Anybody else have any better stories than mine? What's up? The pizza story. Which one? Well, that's all those same guys. But I already talked. I don't know which part of the story you want me to tell. Well, that's SolezNeff and Grill Black and hrewton and Trable. Yeah, that's those guys. I already told the story. I'm arguing with my boss in front of everyone. I'm kind of stupid, huh? So you can check us out at blog.newix.com. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is handle-free because I love irony. And I do have a blog that contains great links to really good blogs. I never update mine anymore, sorry, but I still have really good links. So go out and visit. Most of the time I do any blogging, it's for Newix, or I try to stay involved that way. I don't really update my personal one anymore, but it's out there still. And then obviously there's contact information there for Newix if anybody's interested to see what Newix does. So thank you very much.